Tribal sovereignty is important because it's acknowledgement that the federal government's always recognized us as separate people, separate governments, all the tribes, and the treaties that we signed, they speak to that as well. We're in the Declaration of Independence and we're in the Constitution, and so sovereignty is that acknowledgement that we've always been independent people. We've always managed our lands for millennia. So I think that's what sovereignty is just that acknowledgement. We've been doing this and we're going to continue to do this.
Tribal sovereignty, very important for indigenous people of North America or wherever you're from. Very important to be able to express yourself, to be able to speak your language, to carry on with your traditions and your culture, to worship as you were meant to, as Creator had imparted that to the people. Important to serve one another and to take care of one another. That's, I believe, the importance. It's really the ability to make choices, to make sure that you listen to what the people's needs are and try your hardest to try to get there and to do as they please. So it's never done. It's always there, and things change. And as people get different ideas, that also motivates change. So for me, tribal sovereignty was embedded in my life, in my heart, in my mind, from my grandmother, who was born 1900. But sovereignty is living your life in the way that you knew it to be. And that was really off of the land, live off the land, take care of the land. So that's really, sovereignty is about being able to live safe, being able to have a place where you do stay. It's about managing your own physical body, so healthcare is very important. If you're taken from the land and banished from the land, you don't have access to your medicines and the things that keep you healthy. Of course, when you think about sovereignty, you think about the ability to govern yourself, to set up the system that you think is important. And that's to police yourself as well. So sovereignty is really being able to move, breathe, live, and do what you want, and to manage your affairs in a peaceful way.
Tribal consultation is a piece of that sovereignty, right? So if you have a government-to-government relationship, it doesn't work unless there's some consultation behind it. It's kind of putting action to those words themselves. So it is very much an active role. It isn't just something that you kind of check the box as something done. It's listening as well. Tribal consultation means a lot to me as a leader because that's how we govern each other. We govern our own people by the decisions that we're going to make based on the needs of our tribe. And then kind of intermixing that with either the state or local governments or the federal government. It's just working together collaboratively to get to the spot that not just our tribal people need, but in some cases it's what other localities, other federal people, the local communities is what they need as well. So it's that piece. It's a consultation to improve all of our outcomes, but specifically for our own tribal people's needs, which each tribe is different on that. It's reaching out and saying, we know these are your ceded lands, and we know that you still have a lot of role to play in there, and we feel that connection still. So it's our responsibility that we still carry today in all our ceded lands. And so for us, it's making sure it's not just a checkbox, it's a meaningful consultation, and it's not to looking as how the tribes might slow us down, but how the tribes might help us, because we have very much to offer in that consultation.
So consultation is really, to me, before you start messing with the land and the air, the environment, You just ask the tribe. We're thinking about this. What do you think? Do you think, do you have any thoughts that it might affect you adversely? Or would it enhance anything you have? Is there anything going on here that might harm you? And eventually, can we get your support? In its purest form, it's respect. It's an honorable thing to do. To be able to look at each other eye to eye and to sit there and to know there's no hidden agenda, that this is really an open forum.
So I think it's an active process when it's not just sending a letter, right? It's participating, follow-up. Sure, send a letter, but some follow-up with that. And I think a good example of that, again, is Governor Brown had a cultural items task force that she assembled. And that is requiring the state agencies to do an inventory of all the items that might be cultural that they have in their possession. So it's a way of people not judging for themselves, just thinking outside the box a little. And while this picture itself might not seem cultural, but the landscape and what's hidden in there that we haven't seen for years very much is so. For kids to have better opportunities, I think that's an issue of sovereignty, where the values that we place, we get to actually put them in our programs themselves. And I think that's a huge exercise of sovereignty is, while it might not be as important to, say, the federal government or the general population, we get to pick and choose for ourselves what is important, whether we incorporate in our landscape our traditional foods, things like that. How we reflect our sovereignty is in those choices, and I think they're important.
There's a relationship between all living things in water. And that relationship is respectful to one another. You don't see the fish throwing the water out and trying to make a dam of it. It flows in harmony together.
So I think tribal consultation for our local communities or for the tribe both, and how we share some benefits from that. One that comes to mind is salmon and our efforts to help out the salmon people. They have always been there for us. And I think our efforts and our consultation is going to lead to not just our benefits for the tribe and the salmon people, but for all the communities that salmon's become a very important part of the Northwest. Oh, I think it is very important that we recognize that each tribe has different focus areas and different needs. I think it's hugely important that while the consultation is important, we reach out to those that are in their ceded lands, it's also important to recognize those differences and to be accepting of those differences and allow the space for them. I think the most important thing to remember with consultation is that each tribe is different. You have to know that there are going to be differences, and it isn't necessarily you have to pick and choose who's right or wrong. You just have to be aware that there are differences and not to assume that what you've heard from one tribe is going to be true for every tribe. So I think you just approach it like you do with any individual. Give them their space, learn their personality, learn their wants and needs and desires, and I think that's the same for tribal groups.